Have you ever wondered at what point in history a human body became a commodity that could be bought and sold? Was it when a father in Mesopotamia facing starvation had to sell his children so they could survive? Or when a merchant took a man as a slave in pledge for an unpaid debt of 28 silver shekels? This video will tell you about a turning point in history, the most painful truth of humanity, how the price of a human was first determined. Part 1. Debunking the myths. The story that's been told for centuries goes like this. People first bartered, then money was invented, and civilization began. But the background of these events is much darker and more disturbing than this romantic tale. Now, with your permission, let me take you briefly from the present back to 570 BC. In Babylon, there's a court decision engraved on magnificent stone tablets. Let's examine this document together. It tells us this. Barakiel is the slave of Gaga and can only be redeemed with money. In the 35th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, he was pledged to Akinuri for a debt of 28 silver shekels. A human being for 28 silver shekels. In today's money, that's about a few $1,000s. Right here, on this cold stone tablet, a person's price is clearly written. But this story wasn't the first. It started long before Barakiel. Think about it. Before money was even invented, people already had something. Debt? Yes, you heard that right. In Babylon, Sumer, and Ur, there was no money, but there was debt. How could that be? Mesopotamia's agricultural societies operated on a simple logic. If there's a drought this year and no crops grow, you borrow grain from your neighbor. Next year, if the harvest is good, you pay it back. This simple agreement eventually gave birth to a monster, permanent debt slavery. Because the gods didn't show the same generosity every year. In the Ur-Nammu laws, written around 2100 BC, slavery is already mentioned as an ancient tradition. This is the oldest known legal text, and it even talks about the rights of slaves and the capture of runaway slaves. So, when humanity learned to write, slavery was already well established. That's the real truth. Part 2. The birth of the debt cycle. Now, let me take you to another event. Imagine yourself in a Sumerian family's home. The man of the house wakes up early in the morning and checks the grain storage because his children are hungry and his wife is struggling with illness. Last year's drought ruined everything. The storage is empty. So, what would you do in this situation? Yes, that father does exactly what might cross your mind, going to the bank for a loan. He goes to the temple and asks the priest for grain as a loan. The priest takes out a clay tablet and inscribes it with cuneiform, 10 kor of barley, to be repaid with interest in the next harvest period. The next year, there's drought again. The man can't pay. The debt grows, and of course, interest accumulates. Then the priest says, if you can't pay your debt, give me your son to serve for 3 years. In return, your debts will be cleared. And right there, that man's son becomes a slave for 3 years. But most of the time, those 3 years never end. Historians call this debt bondage. In the Code of Hammurabi, it's clearly stated, a slave given in pledge for debt can be sold by the creditor if the debt isn't paid within 3 years. But freeborn persons must be released after 3 years. But there's a tricky game here. What does freeborn mean? Is a child of a slave mother considered freeborn? No. That's how the endless cycle of slavery begins. Now, let me give you an analogy. Think about today's credit card debt spiral. You make the minimum payment, but the interest is so high that the debt never ends. In fact, it grows. The same thing happened in Mesopotamia. But today, if you can't pay your credit card, they don't seize you and make you a slave. Back then, they did. Your freedom, or your child's, was in the hands of a creditor. And doesn't that thought make your skin crawl? Right here, you're face to face with the truth at the foundation of money and finance. Debt is older than freedom. A human's value was measured even before the first tablets were inscribed. If this information surprised you as much as it did me, please don't forget to like the video, because these kinds of truths need to reach more people. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. In the continuation of this series, I'll explain the legacies from Sumer and why we still use the base 60 system. Part 3. Hammurabi's secret weapon. Now, let's come to one of history's most interesting paradoxes. Hammurabi. Have you heard of him? Of course you have. The king famous for his eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth laws. But history books don't tell you about his most revolutionary act. During his 42-year reign, Hammurabi did something for his people 4 times, what historians call a clean slate. In 1792 BC, 1780 BC, 1771 BC, and 1762 BC, he cancelled all his citizens' debts. Yes, you heard that right, a general debt amnesty. Imagine, you wake up one morning and the king issues a proclamation. All debts are cancelled. Everyone enslaved for debt is free. So why did Hammurabi do this repeatedly? Was he that kind-hearted? Of course not. He was pragmatic. He knew that debt slavery was rotting society from within. Farmers couldn't work their fields because they had to labor as slaves. Soldiers couldn't go to war because they were crushed under debt. And in the end, the economy came to a standstill. Hammurabi had seen the foundations of the building rotting. By canceling his people's debts, he repaired the foundations before the whole structure collapsed. But there's a critical detail here. Hammurabi only forgave the debts of citizens. There was a group called houseborn slaves, Willid Bitim. These were children born to slave mothers, and sadly, they couldn't benefit from these amnesties. Right here, a class system was crystallizing, those born free and those born slaves. And once you were born a slave, no debt amnesty could save you, because you were seen as property, not as a debtor human. This shows us a truth that still echoes today. Systems leave some people out to protect themselves. Hammurabi's laws defended justice, but that justice was only for certain classes. Part 4. The price of a human. Now, let's get to the main question. How was the price of a human determined? There's a tablet from around 2300 BC. It says, Sini Ishtar bought a slave named Iatapi from Iluelati and his son Akia. He paid 10 silver shekels. A human for 10 silver shekels. But where did this figure come from? In Mesopotamia, slave prices depended on many factors. A young and strong man was more expensive, maybe 15 to 20 silver shekels. A beautiful woman could be much more. An old or sick slave, perhaps only 3 to 4 shekels. But the truly tragic part is this. Children. Families sold their children during famines to ensure both the children's and their own survival. And these children's prices were determined by grain prices. A child's value could be less than a sack of wheat. Imagine a parent weighing their child's price. If I don't sell them, they'll die of starvation. But if I sell them, at least they'll live. As a slave, but alive. This is humanity's most painful choice. And this choice was made thousands of times every day. But there's another truth here. Being a slave was sometimes the only way to survive. For a soldier captured in war, what were the options? Being killed or becoming a slave? For a starving man, dying or earning food by serving a master? The paradox is this. Slavery was both the greatest cruelty and sometimes the only guarantee of life. So how did this system work so perfectly? The answer lies in a legacy from Sumer. The number system. In our next video, I'll explain why we still divide the hour into 60 minutes and the minute into 60 seconds. Because Mesopotamia's debt system didn't just create slavery, it also laid the foundations for accounting, mathematics, and modern finance. Please stay tuned. Conclusion. The truth behind the curtain. Now, let's return to where we started, to Barachiel, to that court document. In 570 BC, a man became a slave for 28 shekels. But Barachiel's story isn't just his, it's the story of millions of people at the same time. In Mesopotamia, Egypt, Rome, and yes, it continues today in different forms. Because debt still exists, and debt still limits people's freedom. Of course, the form and shape aren't the same, they don't chain you up, but they can chain you economically. Student loans, mortgages, credit card debts, all are continuations of the same old story in modern forms. And right here, financial education becomes a survival weapon. Because if you don't understand the system understands you, and it traps you in a cycle just like those farmers in Mesopotamia. Hammurabi's laws should teach you something. Systems are designed to protect themselves. Yes, debt amnesties were issued, but they were only to prevent the system's collapse. They were never applied to houseborn slaves because they were outside the system. It's the same today. Some debts are forgiven, some never are. Some people are saved, some aren't. The question is, which side do you want to be on? What you do with this knowledge is up to you. But remember, money didn't exist before debt. Slavery existed before morality. And the price of a human was determined long before the first writing was carved into stone. If this video showed you the truth behind the curtain, please like, share, and write your thoughts in the comments. Because this information is what the system doesn't want you to see. Subscribe because the continuation of this series is coming. And in the next video, we'll talk about Sumer's most enduring legacy, the base 60 system. Remember, history isn't a story left behind. It's a map needed to understand today. And knowing how to read this map is the greatest guarantee of your freedom. See you in the next video. And always remember, debt is older than humanity, but awareness is stronger than freedom.